All right. Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another episode of How Would You Slice That? We're coming off of, almost a month and a half break since our last episode on March 13th. So it's been a while, and I'm going to have time myself to catch up with Lawrence tonight. Lawrence, how have you been doing?
Doing great, Vicky. It has been almost a month and a half. I have gone on spring break, elementary school style. Yeah. and I've found myself doing a few 3D printed projects. I actually started an account on Fangs. I printed different Fangs. Yeah, and that was an interesting experience. And I've also 3D printed some darning needles. My daughter is into fiber craft. She's into crochet now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so I printed her 12 darning needles, and she said that she met someone who's been has been crocheting for years, and she only has one. So a little bit overkill.
How many did you make for her?
12.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're all different sizes and stuff like that. Yeah, the thing the subscription that I got off of Fangs, I 3D printed a lamp and gave it to someone as a birthday present. And so, yeah, I've been doing some things that maybe a little bit more significant. Then, of course, new hardware has come out since we last have talked.
Mm-hmm.
The Bamboo H2 has come out, and then the price of the Bamboo H2 went up. How about you? What have you been up to?
Well, I had a little teaser there. In previous episodes, I have mentioned that I purchased the Cocoa Press, but I had not built the Cocoa Press. But in our time off, I finally had time to. Here, I can't share it. Well, anyway, I have built the Cocoa Press finally.
We saw it a second ago.
Yeah, it was for sure. Let's try this again. See, maybe we're a little rusty after the break, huh?
Yeah. That's to be understood. That happens sometimes. There it is. Wow.
That is me concentrating or doing my first print on the Cocoa Press, I think. And then we have our very first print that came off of it. I'm still learning. This is a vase mode rose by Lydia, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still learning to design for vase mode. I'm trying to. I have aspirations for 3D printed DNA, like double helixes, but I'm still learning the ropes and getting it to go.
That one's hard to pull off in plastic. Doing that in chocolate would be quite the achievement.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, you're designing for vase mode. Is it a software that's unique to Cocoa Press, or are you using?
Oh, I'm still doing the I'm still doing most of my designing in Blender.
Oh, okay. All right, great.
So that's the work in progress. And then this beautiful one is designed by Dave Makes Things. This flower. That's how I think every chocolate core I've printed so far, I've printed some Dave Makes Things designs.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because he's the GOAT.
Wow. And so Dave makes prints. I mean, he designs just for chocolate, or is it?
Yeah. If you've seen that chocolate Eiffel Tower, then that is one of Dave's handiworks.
Wow. Oh my goodness. And so what do you like about it so far?
I don't know. I think I like that I built it. I think it's very sentimental to me. I will say the prints, you have to photograph them really fast because they don't last. They get devoured really, really quickly. And so, a lot of times when I'm designing in plastic, I'll print something and I let it sit and I'm like, maybe these details need to be more exaggerated, or I don't like how I did this overhang. I study the print, and you don't have that opportunity with the chocolate, especially when you live with a family of 4 other people. It's
oh
not
my
really
goodness.
fun.
Yeah. Wow, that's fun. How much of the chocolate have you gone through? I know you get like you have like 2 or 3
I think
like
probably about five of the cores, I think.
really? Wow, okay. Did you make anything for the Easter holiday or no? Did
Oh
you make any
wait.
eggs?
Okay. That's me learning. Did this come up on here? Yeah.
Oh, okay. All
So
right.
I did a little chocolate bunny. This is not in vase mode, so I was just trying to learn like what it can do with the overhangs and
Right.
here with the top layers you need to be cognizant of. So yeah, I did a little bunny that I designed really quickly. And then I've
Uh-huh.
been playing, I have a Prusa Slicer pull request that helps let you define angles with the zigzag infill. And the use
Uh-huh.
case is you set 0 perimeters so you can show some pretty designs. So
Uh-huh.
I tried that out of chocolate. It didn't quite come out the way I
Wow.
expected. So,
It-
basically there's a modifier here and
Uh-huh.
here.
So we can see the infill?
Yeah, so it's showing 0 parameters and showing the infill. So it didn't quite turn out as I expected, but I'm really like, I didn't get to study it a long time because it got eaten. But I do I think I'm going to keep an eye out because I think I can do something with that kind of squiggle kind of fuzzy leg pattern there.
Uh-huh. Wow. So I mean, that strikes me as almost like being similar to printing with clay or ceramic or something like that. The way it kind of falls, it doesn't lay
Yeah.
down, or the layers aren't placed specifically like with plastic. So interesting, very interesting. Wow,
Yeah.
man.
And
Well,
then
anything else that you is that's the biggest thing, I'm sure.
yeah, but I did a few Easter things, and then just a quick shout out. I got to be a good aunt for my nieces, thanks
Ah,
to your
wow.
familiar name to you, which be our. Oops, let me open that up again. Our Karen Chow designs. She did
Oh,
these little
really?
egg-shaped gift boxes, and
Wow.
they're just really easy to customize in Bamboo Studio. And so I did a couple of those for my nieces, and I stole another Karen Chow idea and put cash in them too, folded up
Oh, that's
pretty
great.
cash.
Wow, that's awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, I well, I've also been doing a lot of work with the 3D printing club. Well, actually, I guess we should probably introduce our guest, and then we'll go
Oh
into that.
yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Yes. Well, today's guest is a really unique guest. Joey, hold on, let me get his last name right. Uh, Joey Mitolo is our guest this evening. He is a student at an honor student at Northern Virginia Community College. And I met Joey at the beginning of this semester, this semester in January, maybe even February, where I came in and talked about students going to be doing projects using 3D printing. They had to come up with their own ideas, and I gave Joey some guidance based off of the Maker Coin idea that we talked about. That was like August. So I told everybody about how they could use the MakerCoin idea, and they could put logos on things and make their own designs and put logos on them in the same kind of way. So Joey's going to be joining us today. He's going to be showing us something that he has designed, an original design for something that's very important. It's actually pretty crucial to a community that he is a part of as well. So let's go ahead and welcome Joey, honor student at Nova.
Hello,
Hello,
Joey.
hello. Hi, how's it going,
Hey,
guys? Thanks so much for having me.
no problem. Thanks for coming out. And so one of the things that I have been doing that have been working on um, recently is that the 3D printing club we had a faculty awards event. And so the faculty awards event, basically the 3D printing club put together three of the students got together and they did designs to give awards to the faculty. It's very unusual in college, high school, whatever, for students to give awards to faculty. Faculty usually gets awards from the administration or from their peers. So we worked together on this idea to produce original designs for faculty awards. This is one of the designs, you know. pretty straightforward extruded star that the students had designed. This is one of our runner-up designs. You got some pictures of the
I should
first place design too.
Here, I'll grab it. Sorry.
And the first place is there we go. The first place design, you'll recognize that as a xenomorph from Alien. Now the first place winner was Professor Kamisha Chen, and we decided to give her the xenomorph because of the themes of Alien and the Aliens franchise, with women exceeding in difficult situations and still coming out as a hero at the end of it all. So the xenomorph, yeah.
So it's inspired by Ripley then, like the strong woman
from the Aliens franchise. Yes, and so a last minute decision was to give her the xenomorph, and so we had an award ceremony, food, refreshments, and stuff like that. We invited everybody down. We opened up voting to 7,500 students. A total of 350 faculty who were eligible to be voted for, and Kamisha Chen wound up being our top recipient. In the fall, the beginning of the semester, we're going to give the awards to the rest of the faculty who also got notable numbers of votes. So that was what was cool about that is that that is on the left is Professor Chen, and on the right is Mariana Paredes. She is the president of the 3D printing club, instrumental in making sure this whole thing kind of came together. And so it was what I loved about it is that we were able to give we were able to give faculty something that was far and above unique. Nobody will ever be given a xenomorph head.
It wasn't my first idea with a trophy, to be honest. So,
right.
But the backstory you gave makes a lot of sense.
Yes, and what's even better though is that I went to a college where the undergraduate student population was a little bit mischievous, so there's a little bit of student flavor to the whole thing as well, So we gave them the opportunity to design and things like that, and had an event, and so that was part of the whole thing. And then now Joey's here, and so of course that was the big event. Did we have any more pictures of? We got pictures of other students talking and things like that.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
One here. So we have. Oh, that's your same.
Yeah, that's the event. Okay. Well, yeah, we could. That's plenty of content.
There you go.
Okay, yeah, that's Connor. Connor is explaining to the crowd what an STL is. We actually started out the awards calling it, instead of calling it 3D printed.
If you look, yeah, it says stereolithography over here.
Right. So we actually started out the awards calling them the STL awards, right? Because that's exactly what we were giving people. But we had to change it to the 3D Printing Club Faculty Awards because nobody really, not nobody. If there's 7,500 students at Woodbridge, 7,000 of them don't know what an STL is, which I thought was a perfect opportunity. When somebody says, "What's an STL?" we get the opportunity to explain what an STL is. But it also created a hiccup in the process. So I think hopefully one day we'll be able to change it over to the STL Awards because everybody will know what an STL is. But really, Connor was bringing home that any image, any picture, any design that is one-dimensional, it's two-dimensional or three-dimensional, can be produced with a 3D printer, and really just emphasizing how ideas can go from something inside your head to something you can hold in your hands without much expense and with a little bit of effort. And so that's really why I wanted to have students like Joey come on to our show today. because like I said, I met Joey. He was a what's the class that you were taking?
It's ITE 152.
ITE 152. And he is an honors student in the ITE 152. So we had to do a project where there was an original design. He had to present it to the class. We had to print it out and present it to the class, that kind of thing. And so I went in and talked about 3D printing. And Joey, and is Connor in your class too?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, Joey and Connor were in the same class, and they both had questions. And so I could tell from what Joey was asking, like this young man's got a 3D printer. I'm almost certain that he's asking like technical stuff, not highly technical stuff, but like, when people are asking you about different stuff, it kind of comes out like it's educated type of questions. And so we had several questions afterwards. And so one of the first things I made sure that Joey knows is that he bought my opinion, not sponsored here, he bought the best 3D printer for the money that you can possibly buy. And so one of our first conversations that we had was, I'm thinking about buying a bigger printer or a different printer. This one was cheap. I'm not sure. And I was like, you got the best you really can get for the money. So he's got a Bamboo A1 Mini, which is I saw an A1 Mini at 3D Printopia 2.5 years ago, and I was like, I got to have one. And so it's been good, right, Joe?
Oh yeah, it's been amazing. And thankfully I got it before the tariffs kicked in, so I saved a little bit of money on that as well. But no, I got it. It was an early Christmas present back in like November, and like I had done my research, so it wasn't like I had just been gifted this. And it was just like the first printer they had found. Like I knew what I wanted, and I was like, can I have this for Christmas? And I got it early as well because there was a big sale. But no, I mean it's been amazing. The biggest issues I have run into with that printer is either I messed with a setting I didn't realize I messed with, or I didn't clean the build plate enough. And those are like the only two things that I've really run into that's been like a problem. I mean, obviously, like every once in a while I'll have where like layer shifting or stuff like that will happen where it's like little things, but I haven't had any major technical stuff, and it has been a blast. Like I print all the stuff all the time. I don't know if you can hear it but right now I'm experimenting with some TPU in the background. So I don't know if that noise is picking up. Hopefully not, but it's in the room. So
that's another beauty of it. It's extremely quiet.
So quiet.
Yeah, and so you're working on the little octopus that you showed me earlier today?
Yeah. I'm trying to see, trying a couple different versions with different types of infill to see what type kind of supports it while still, making it squishy enough.
Oh, good stuff. And so yeah, I mean, multi-material, you're working with two different types of materials. So it's great. Like you don't we've talked about this on this show before, but like the suite of printers that are out now and the capability they afford people, it's getting people to the point where they can really pursue ideas and work on production versus working on the machines, and people who've gotten into 3D printing the last year or two, they don't even realize just how far down the road they are with all of this.
I'm spoiled.
It's not spoiled at all. It's the way technology should go. So good for you.
Now, did you already have that when you first met Lawrence with this project of printing your own object?
I did. Yeah. So okay. I had it, but all I did was I'd look up. I didn't even have the Bamboo Studio or Slicer or anything on my computer. All I do is I just go onto the Maker World app on my phone, and I'd go, oh well, it looks cool, and I go, oh, it's gonna take 3 hours. I'm gonna go ahead and print that out. And I didn't even get into the side of, oh, I can go in and edit something or make my own. Like I didn't even think about that side of things. It was just, I am just going to go onto the app on my phone. I know what color I want it to be. And then I'm just going to go in and that's what I'm going to print.
Nice.
And that was great. I mean, so what kind of stuff did you print when you first started?
It was a lot of like the fidget toys, and it wasn't as much. So that was the kind of thing that really inspired me to really do the honors class and like make my own project in the first place, is because I had printed lots of like fidget toys or like rubber band guns and stuff like that, where it's like, it's like little cool things, but it's trinkets and they build up over time. And so like, I was trying to give them away to people because it's like, oh, I have a 3D printer. Let me just go ahead and give stuff away since then I can just cycle things through. But then it's like, at a certain point, it's kind of like, this is all cool, but like, where's like the cool, like the functional stuff that you can make? And that's kind of what it was like. That was like the perfect timing for when you came to our class. And I was like, oh, there's like a whole nother layer to this, literally and figuratively, that I'm like getting into this, that I'm kind of coming into, and it's like, oh wow, this is awesome. Like, this is goes to levels that at my abilities and my capabilities as someone who's never worked in any type of 3D modeling, I was able to look at and go, I might actually be able to do something with this.
Yes.
And it was like, whoa.
Yeah. Like, whoa, that's a great feeling. That's one of the first, that's the feeling that really has kept me into 3D printing for so long. So thank you for sharing that. So you started out printing things off of Maker Studio. And so what software were you thinking about? What software did you kind of start with, and is it the same one that you're using right now for design?
So I ended up I tried to use the slicer. So over Christmas even, I was even like going into the slicer a little bit. So I like gotten Bamboo, like the slicer at that point, and I was like messing around with like words and can I add text to an object? And like I took the printer, since it's so small, I took it to my grandparents' house like 3.5 hours away, because I was like, they're gonna think this is awesome, and they did. And so I printed. It was right around Christmas time, so I printed them a 3D ornament, and so it was experimenting. So I used the slicer. I think it was until I came into class, which I think you said like January, maybe even February.
Yes.
So it was like a month and a half that I only used the Bamboo slicer.
Wow.
And I was like, man, this is so clunky. I was like, why is this so frustrating to use? And then when you came in and you talked about Tinkercad, I was like, oh, let me go try that one. And I tried it. And so up to this point, I have now been purely only using Tinkercad. I'll only use the slicer if it's like something like literally like 2 steps to do, or it's just infill. Like I've messed with infill, but I try to stay with Tinkercad because it's so much faster. And then I have the software for Fusion, and I'm going to try to learn that once school gets out in 2 weeks. I'm going to try to, in the month of May, I'm going to try to spend learning how to use Fusion to try to actually get into like the real like design software where you can kind of go in and make all kinds of much better and more detailed designs.
Wonderful. Well, I mean, that's a wonderful progression. I'm sure that a lot of people who are on the podcast right now probably follow a similar progression.
And we have some Fusion users too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Vicki, you use Blender, you said.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. So what do you like about Blender as far as design for you?
I guess, I was telling Joey before we went live that I started learning Blender in around 2013, 2014-ish. Now I've had so many years with it. It's just my comfort place. So it's, you already know how to do a lot of things in it. So I think what I like about it is it's comfortable for me.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah, you go back, you got some history, which is great. That is awesome. Yeah, and so you use Tinkercad now. You're looking to go into Fusion, well, tell us about your process. Tell us about the first thing that you designed.
Well, first off, to give us a little overview of the end goal, the end project, and then I want to hear the whole journey.
All right. I'm a type 1 diabetic. I was diagnosed, I don't know how many years ago, but I was 9 and I'm 19 now, so it's been a little over 10 years. I've been a type 1 diabetic, and I am not a naturally super organized or clean person. And so there's a lot of different supplies you need as a type 1 diabetic. I mean, like right now, I regularly use like 5 different things, and there's only one medication that I use, but then I have different devices that I use. And so those are disposable devices that you have to replace every couple of days. And so there's a lot of stuff that I use, but then I just don't keep very good track of. And so my end goal was like, let me find something that when I'm traveling, because that's one of my biggest issues is that when I'm traveling, I'll just kind of throw everything into a bag, and then, it'll get shaken up or everything will kind of be all over the place. So I was like, let me make like a box where I can keep all of my stuff. It's a nice, like hard shelled case, especially when I go trips. Like I coach for a football team, high school football team. It's like we'll go to like Florida in November and stuff like that. So obviously this is like in hindsight, I'm like, oh, this would be great. Put it in my suitcase. I don't have to carry it on the bus with me and be worried that it's going to get shaken around or it's going to get broken underneath the bus, because it'll be a nice hard case. So that was kind of, yeah. And so there you see, that's my, my box design, was to bring in a box that can hold all of my stuff all in one place for like a 3 to 4 day trip. And so you'll see, yep, right in there, it's got all the different spots. So to kind of go through, I have a couple of the things to kind of show what the things are that I wanted to put into the box, and then I'll go into the box itself. So the first one is it's an Omnipod is what it's called. They go all over. So I put on my back, my arm. It's got like a little cannula, but the case is nice because it comes. There's like a little syringe to put the insulin, which is the medication that I use, into the device. But it's got this like nice, like little thin ridge all the way around. And my thought is like, oh, like that'll make it an easy storage solution. So that was the first model, the first thing I needed to print out for. And then the second one was the vial of insulin, which I just wanted to stand it up. This is the one that really can't get shaken around because the bubbles. Obviously, it's just if you shake around something, it's going to get bubbles in it. It's just going to get air mixed in. I wanted to limit that because when I'm pulling the insulin out, if you put any air bubbles in, the device, the Omnipod, it will read that as giving you insulin when in fact it's just giving you air, and then it'll mess up my blood sugar numbers. Yeah, so I really want to keep as little air as I can, like mixed in with the insulin. So obviously, there's just going to be air in the vial no matter what. But if I can keep the insulin in one spot and the air in the other spot, that's the best way to do it.
Got it.
The third thing was insulin syringes. So they're very skinny. So the hope was I wasn't sure how I was initially going to put these in. I wasn't sure if I was going to lay them on their side, put them facing up, or put them facing down. But I knew that I wanted to have a lot of them in there because I use those on a regular basis as well. And then the last thing, which I don't use often, and hopefully I won't ever have to use, is glucagon. And it is basically it's used to help make sure if my blood sugar goes really, really low, that what it will do is it'll take all of the sugar that gets built up in your liver, and it'll basically just push it out into your body, which will then get your blood sugar to go a little bit higher, and that will make sure that you don't die. Like that's the end goal, is to make sure you don't die. And so that was the fourth thing, because it's always good to have that on hand because you never know what's going to happen. And so those are the four things I wanted to get into the box. And then depending on the space, obviously with my Bamboo Mini, it's got a pretty big build plate, but it's not huge. And so I wanted to see if I could fit, but I wasn't as concerned with fitting. It's called a Dexcom, but this is the box. So the device is inside normally. Well, it is inside, but this is the box. It's a very square. It's very easy to carry around. But that was the one thing that was like, I don't need it because you can replace those every 10 days as opposed to where everything else is a lot shorter use time. And it's not as urgent of a need. But I was like, if I can fit that in, that's cool. And spoiler alert, there wasn't enough room in the box that I was making. So we're just that was just the other thing in a future iteration, I might try to include.
Right. Okay.
So then I know I had a conversation with you. I came in, we talked about the maker chip, and that's kind of when the gears in my brain started going like, oh, okay, like I can look into some stuff. And that's when I was introduced printables and I want to say Yegi. I'm not sure what the names of the sites are, but those are the main ones. I basically just searched up different models that'll hold the supplies that I was looking for. And then I talked to you about it. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to edit these. And so I started, you have your own 3D printer. I made little slices of each device that I wanted. So I don't know if you can see it very well, but this basically was just there as a test object.
Can you do it again?
Oh, yeah. But you'll see it. So it has those ridges in there, just like I was looking for. And so the goal was to make sure that everything would fit. And so the goal is to have that standing up in the box. And so that was one of the first things that I printed. And so I basically did that. I found models for each of the supplies that I wanted. And I would print little slices of them because the overall models that housed each item were a lot bigger than I wanted them to be. But I just wanted to basically have the things that I couldn't do myself, because again, I'm still very new, especially then, into the design software, and instead be able to kind of go in and figure something out myself and kind of be able to go, okay, I don't know how to make these tiny little ridges just yet. So let me use someone else's design, but then revamp it for my own project. And so I did that for all of my thing. I found one for the syringes as well. And then I found one for the insulin vials, which you see right here. It came initially with 4 of them, and then I cut it down to 2 because I wanted to conserve a little bit of the supplies. But this glucagon that I use is a newer model. Like it's by model, I mean like it's a newer
product.
It's a newer product, and so it wasn't. There weren't 3D models for it. when I was looking. I mean, maybe there is now, I don't know. But my hope is that I could fit basically on like this little slice, just take this like 2-block, put the glucagon vial right next to the insulin, and then just sit them right in there. Because when you hold it up, it barely does fit, but it does fit on or with like a white border around it. So this is when I got into using holes, which is crazy, but like this is my design process. I figured out how to use a hole in Tinkercad, and I was like, all right, let me just mess around with this. I'll make like 4 of these little like slices with like different widths of or I guess different diameters of the circle to figure out which one works. And so then I printed this little slices are literally like 6 or 7 layers. I don't know how many layers, but it's not very many layers thick. But the goal was, you see the one with the insulin vials goes right there. And then the one right next to it is a little bit bigger. Its goal was just, can I fit that in even if it's really tight? So this one is the only one I could find, because I think I probably threw the rest of them away because I only needed one. But it fits it, but barely. And so my thought was, all right, now I'll print. I've got all the different designs of the things that like the slices that I want. Let me go in and try to put everything together now. And so I wanted to like make my own sized box, but I was not confident in my abilities to print a latch or hinges because of like the intricacies of that. And again, future iterations, I want to do this all like completely myself and like completely redesign it. But like for right then for the project, I didn't know how to do those. So I found like a pencil case that had like the right hinge that I wanted. And so I found one that just had, I mean, it's a lot smaller than this, but it had this the hinge back here, like that 3-pronged hinge. And then it had the front latch, which had a nice, I mean, at least to me, it had a nice click, but it was
a very satisfying click.
Yes, indeed.
And that was my hope is, if I'm going to, find a model and print it, I might as well print like a nice one. And so I found this on Maker World, and I was like, all right, it's like a pencil box right now. How big can I get it to fit all my stuff? And so that was the initial process, was putting everything into the box all in one place. And so this was my very first iteration. And I think you have a picture, which probably will have better lighting of it. But this was my very first iteration that had everything in it in one spot. And so it fit my pods, it fit the syringes, it fit the insulin, and it fit the glucagon. And I was very happy that it all fit. But then I could see that there's all kinds of gaps. There's gaps in between each object, each little thing, where you can kind of tell that I pieced everything together because it was my first one. And so from there, it was 2 different types of design that I had to do. I had to figure out how to make the box look the way I wanted, and I had to make all the stuff inside look really clean, like it was almost like it was one piece. And so that's when, it kind of came, and my abilities, like it kind of came to a stop because I didn't know how to use the software. So I was just, trying to brute force it. And so, I'm trying to push things together. And I'm like, why isn't it working? Like something like I'll put one piece together and then it'll stick at the end, and you'll see. And again, you can't see it well, but on this piece, one of the models, I don't know, it's not great with it being white, but one of the models actually, it sticks out. Again, you can't see it well with the lighting. But
I think I can see a little corner that's not the same.
So you can see the corner's not the same because there's a lip on the bottom of the box, combined with the fact that there was then this corner of one of the other, it's a sharp edge. And so my very first thing was like, all right, I'm just going to remove the bottom of the box and extend the flat part all the way down, because then I'll have enough room to fit everything. And I realized in doing that what would happen is if I tried to basically just make the box taller and then just cut off the bottom, I would increase the size of the hinge and of the latch. And so I realized that what I needed to do is I needed to cut everything. I needed to basically cut it into 3 pieces. I needed to cut the bottom off. I needed to cut then the hinges and the lid, like where like the hinges and like the lid latch. I needed to cut those off the top and then just expand the middle piece. And that in of itself, I was talking with Vicky a little bit earlier about it, but that was a bit of a struggle. And if you go back to my Tinkercad thing real quick and show that, what happened with that is that you can kind of still see it, but there's this like line right there. And I don't know how to make it go away, because like I'll shrink it, I'll make it go bigger. But initially what happened is I thought that line was just fine. I thought it was, it's whatever, it'll process. But what actually ended up happening is that the print, it basically printed 2 layers of support because I was like I think it was 1/8 of a millimeter. The 2 parts were separated, so it printed like 1 or maybe 2 layers of support in between the two. So it looked like one of those like cardboard tear tubes, like tear strips. And so then I had to do, so like now you can kind of see, like, I don't know why it's different zones. It's probably because I didn't line it up completely straight at this point. I think is what it is. But the initial one, I had to basically figure out how to get really, really close and barely move it down because I wanted to keep the height of the box without actually, without obviously having layers of support printed in between the 2 pieces.
I think I have a picture of your, maybe. Is that?
Yeah, no, yeah. That is actually one of the issues I ran into, which was a big time layer shift.
Okay.
A little further down. Yeah. That one was a whole different problem. I had that, it was like 3 prints in a row. I had layer shifting. Wow. I don't remember what I did to fix it. I think I just basically reset the printer and then it worked fine. And I was like, all right, well, if it happens again, I guess I'll fix it then again. But that was the first big issue, was figuring out how to split the parts. And at that point, I was kind of gaining some confidence and I was like, now I really want to get into this. I'm getting excited, invested in this. And so from there, it kind of became, all right, I'm going to now recruit the 2 best people I know to help me with this stuff, other than Professor Nightingale, which was ChatGPT and Microsoft Co-Pilot. And I basically would just go, anytime I needed a question answered, I'd go to one of them and I'd go, all right, what do I need to do? Like, how do I do this? And they would either give me an answer or they'd give me a link to a website and I'd find the answer. And eventually, after a couple different iterations, I pieced it together. I got all the pieces to fit the way I wanted them to inside the box. And it was very nice the way that they fit. I was excited about that initially, just like, I got everything. And again, you can't see super well, but like everything fits pretty well. Again, my screen's bright, it's white. But there were a couple of little, like basically, I would say small gaps in between each print. But in general, like if you're just looking at it, you're not going to notice those, especially when there's stuff inside. And so that was really exciting for me. And I was like, all right, like I'm done, right? Like I've done everything. And then my dad suggested, he was like, well, it's a medical supply box. Why don't you put the medical symbol on the front? And so I think it was the first image you showed actually had that image. And this is really where the maker chip thing came into play in my design process, because I remembered back to when we talked about the maker chip and how to put an image into one of them. And so I was able to then I just pulled basically just a regular image off of Google of what I wanted, which was the medical alert. And again, it's backwards on the screen, but it's medical alert, type 1 diabetes.
It looks great to me.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, that works. And with a snake and everything else that I wanted, and then I had to turn that into a vector, and then I had to run it through, I don't remember, I think it was one of the ones that you suggested to me, Professor.
Convertio, maybe?
Yeah, Convertio, that's the one.
Yeah.
And I used the Convertio software, turned that image into the vector, and then I put it into the slicer. And this is actually the only step that I used the bamboo slicer for, was I tried to just put the image as a different color right into the lid. And that's actually what you'll see with my first iteration, is it has this like really dull looking red. And the reason why it's got that really dull red is because it printed white as the first layer, and then it printed the red. So initially I was like, oh, that might look cool, but let me see what it looks like if it's just the first layer. So then I made some adjustments in Tinkercad. And then once I made those, I tried it, and I was like, oh no, the vibrant red is so much better. It pops and it looks way better. And so then that's just what I did. So that was where I used a combination of the slicer and Tinkercad together and was able to make the lid of this box. And I think that was, again, and that's where then I ran into that issue with what you showed earlier, the layer shift happened. That was actually the initial one that I was like, all right, this is gonna be my final print. I'll have this and then it'll be all done. And then I had this nasty layer shift. Again, you can't see it, of course, but you see it on the picture, and it shifted a ton. And I was like, and I was printing it over the night. So I wake up and I'm like, what the heck? Because I put it on I had work early in the morning, so I put it on at like 11 o'clock, and I was up at like 6. And so I wake up and I'm like, I was expecting this box to be like, like my final version. And what the heck is this layer shift? And so then I had to step away from it for a little bit because I wanted to come back with like a fresh perspective to make sure that there was nothing else I wanted to change with it. So I think it was 4 or 5 days off.
Something you can't do with chocolate. You can let it sit and then come back
right?
to it.
See, and now you got me thinking like, ooh, a chocolate 3D printer, that would be fun. See, that's why whenever I have big kid money, when I'm not in school anymore, that'll be one of the things. But then once I did that, I came back, and that's when the one I keep showing it. But that's when you'll see I've got the one basically my final version, which it's nice, it's smooth, it's got that nice red emblem, just like what I wanted. And then it also, let me put everything back, for the dramatic of a reveal. But it fits everything.
Wow.
But it fits everything nice. And the thing that my dad recommended to me, and I thought was a great idea, is everything is different heights. I think I've been talking about it. So this is I don't know if it was 2 inches or 2 millimeters. I kept going back and forth on inches and millimeters, and I can't remember. I'm assuming it was inches. But then this one was a little bit taller. The syringes are different height. The pods are a different height. Like, everything was a different height. But his thing was like, if you just make everything at the same height and you just put like basically little blocks of just infill underneath of it, it'll look a lot cleaner. And so that's what happened, is then everything got put together and nice and clean. It's basically all at the exact same level across the board. And so it looks really nice, and it keeps everything protected. And then when the lid goes on as well, what's nice about that is that I can shake this thing up as much as I want. I mean, you can hear it shaking.
Yeah.
But then when I open it back up, everything will be exactly the same, because there's not enough height between the lid and where everything is placed for it to move anywhere.
That's awesome.
Have you traveled with it yet?
I have not. I want to. But unfortunately, school kind of, gets a little bit in the way of that. I'm hoping, though. I have a couple of hopeful, more day trip events coming up, and so hopefully I'll be able to take it then, and kind of take it out and just at least see and test how it is, just like in a backpack. Big trip, hopefully I'll go on at least one big trip this summer, and I'll be able to test it out and really put it through its paces, and just kind of throw it around and leave it wherever and kind of experiment to see how it holds up. I did print it in PETG because that was kind of the strongest filament I could find that I could cheaply print on my printer, because no ABS for me. And so that was the hope as well, is that it'll be a little more rigid even than PLA, and kind of stand up even if I get a little bit hot. It'll still do kind of what I'm looking for it to do, which is just hold the stuff.
That's great. Yeah. So
was this for a grade? Did you get a grade?
Yeah, it was for a grade. I overkilled on the project. I did way more than was so needed to be done to get the grade. But yes, it is for a grade technically, and I mean, I have my presentation for it on Thursday, and I'm pretty sure that I'm gonna get 100 on it. So I'm pretty sure on the grade assignment. So
I think your practice run for your presentation.
Yeah, pretty much. I just gotta shrink it down a lot more.
Yeah, brevity would help out. But we're glad that you're able to talk about all these details with what you've gone through and everything. And so now you had shared something with me earlier that you had run into other people who were type 1 diabetics, and they had taught you about your box too.
Yeah, so I was homeschooled all through high school, and so the football team I coach for is part of a homeschool organization in the Woodbridge area. It's based out of Manassas. It's called the Northern Virginia Homeschool Athletic Association, or NVHAA. And my brother plays lacrosse still, and so he was at a practice, and they also had volleyball camps going on. And one of the volleyball players there, she is a type 1 diabetic as well. And so my mom and her mom kind of got talking. And so it then, came up that, oh, my son's printing this box. And so then, I am able to kind of join that conversation and, kind of go through my process and all that. And so I think that's one of the things that's cool, is seeing other people, because she was like, oh, that would be interesting, kind of looking to me like, oh, would you be willing to print one of those for me, kind of thing? Because that is one of the things, is that there's a lot of options when it comes to, I mean, it's a very expensive condition long term. I mean, the medical supply, I'm not going to go into it too much, but like medical supplies are just expensive in general, but especially for type 1 diabetics, because you need them or you're going to die. And so there's a lot of options like boxes and like different carrying cases and all that out there. It's just they're not customized, kind of like, you know, each person's going to have specific things that they want. So for me, these are the things I wanted, so that's the things I put in the box. But each person's different. So one of the things that I actually wanted to be able to do is kind of, now that I have more of a grasp on Tinkercad, is talk to her and be like, hey, what are the things you're looking for? Because maybe she has a different device. She doesn't, because there's a couple different insulin pumps other than the Omnipods that I have, and see, hey, do you have a different one? And do you want that to go into your box as opposed to Omnipod holders? And then see how I could customize that for her usage. And I think that's what has kind of excited me, you know, going forward with this project, is that it's something, you know, I mean, I'll make maybe a little bit of money, but it's not like I'm not going like commercial with this. I'm not trying to sell anything. It's more like I'll make a couple bucks just to refund the filament that I'm using and the hours on my printer, but then I get to help out diabetics that are around me in the community and kind of see and help them with an issue that we all kind of have to a certain degree.
Absolutely. Wow. Well, no, and I was just thinking the exact same thing, because there are many people who, there's a lot of different devices out there, a lot of different things that people use in order to keep themselves healthy. And so your box would not be the same as her box. It's almost automatic. And so that customizability, which 3D printing exceeds in, is really, you're really, really, really leaning into that with this particular practice. So that is great. That is great. And so, so you know, now that you've done this, you know, would you have, do you have anything besides, you know, medical boxes, let's just say? You were also talking to me about a couple other things that you were printing. You were using a 0.2 millimeter nozzle for a while to do some stuff.
Yeah. So when I got into it, like this was all like in the middle of me printing the box. One of the big reasons why I came to you initially, and this is what sparked that maker chip. It's all going to come back full circle on this maker chip conversation. Was I am also a coach on a swim team. As you can see, I'm a sports management major, so you know, lots of sports involved in my stuff. Awesome. And I wanted to make a croc gibbet specific to my swim team. And so I was making the logo and I was using my 0.4, and I'm like, man, there's like no detail in this. Like I want it to be at least like smooth when I'm printing it. So then I had a gift card. I think this was right after Christmas. This was in January, but I had like an Amazon gift card or a Visa, something like that. I don't remember. And I ordered and I got a 0.2, a 0.6, and then another like a hardened steel 0.4 millimeter nozzle. I have yet to use the 0.6, but I want to find something to use it with. But with the 0.2, I mostly use it I'm trying to print like so more detailed things. So for example, like the croc gibbet, I've printed a couple versions of that. And now that we're getting closer to the summer, I want to start bulk printing those for like the kids that I coach as like a prize for like an achievement. Like, oh, you have a new personal best. Let me print you one of these, or let me give you one of these. But then something else that I want to use it for, I have not used it as much because it takes so much more time to print stuff in the 0.2. And so I'm like, you know, I want it now. I don't want it tomorrow. I want it right now. And so I have difficulty flipping that, as easy as it is, flipping the nozzle over, because I'm like, I know I'm just going to spend so much more time printing with this nozzle. But I definitely want to get, that was like the big thing I've been printing. But again, now that I'm getting out of school and it's not as chaotic, I want to get into using that 0.2 as well, because I want to see what kind of detail I can get on different designs as opposed to just like an image. I want to see like if I can make differences in layers, or even work on experimenting with some like buckles or latches. Because I think just like those in general, I think is interesting. But then like the strength when you get smaller layers, I mean, I guess I could be wrong, but like in my brain, like when you get smaller layers, it's a more solid print in general.
More interacting surfaces.
Yeah, more interacting surfaces. So then it'll stay longer and it won't wear down as much. Because that's one thing I want to do, since I have a couple of versions of my box, is to see, again, it's all going to come around this, because this is my big project is see how it wears over time, and then see if I need to make adjustments to that, the latch itself. Because if it's a medical box, you know, you're using it daily. Like that's the goal, is to be using this daily to transport your medical supplies that you need every day. And so if the latch wears down after a month, it works. It was functional for a month, but it's not really going to sustain you, especially when someone else, whenever you're giving it to someone else or you're selling it to
Yes.
someone else, you want it to be like to last as long as it can.
Yes.
And that's something you get with 3D printing when you print. And again, I don't know if it's a 0.2, if that'll make it work better or not, but that's something I want to try it and see.
Right. The longer that you're in 3D printing, and if you come back on, if you come back on and consume the show, people talk about these kinds of things around 3D printing all the time. So that's something that you probably want to learning as you move forward in your journey with 3D printing. So that's, and I really appreciate, I have to compliment you on the fact that you are looking to make sure that it's durable, not just that it looks good or not just that it holds these things, but that it's durable and that it really gets the job done like in a multifaceted way. And a lot of times commercial producers of products don't really do that quite so much. So that's great. That's great. And also one other thing I want to point out about your box is that different layers on the bottom of the box and having everything in the same level, that is something that I think in traditional manufacturing would add expense and would probably either put it out of reach for more people or make it not competitive price wise or less profitable for companies. So I think what you've done is highlighted another way in which 3D printing products can be superior than to commercially available products that are out there. Just that, and it's such a simple idea, but I was just sitting here thinking about the bottom of that box. There's 3 different layers, and there's a lot of extra material. I'm not going to use the word extra. A lot of additional material that maybe you wouldn't want to spring for if you were doing injection molding or something like that. So that's great.
That was actually my initial thing with it. Is I was like, well, it's just going to take extra filament, and my dad was like, no, trust the process a little bit. He's a computer guy, and so he's really smart with stuff, and so he was kind of like, just trust the process and try it, and if you really don't like it, then you can go back, but at least then you'll know how to do it. And so then I went through, and it was definitely a process because, it's figuring out how to get all these little boxes to line up where I wanted them to get all these different heights and make sure I measure all the different objects. And so it was definitely a process. But again, you saw it. I'm happy with the way it turned out. And it's definitely a worthwhile couple of hours that I spent figuring out how to make it work. And that's, again, for some people, when it's like a couple hours to do that, that's crazy. But for me, as I was, again, just trying to brute force this thing together, it was like a couple hours. That's not bad for what I got out of it.
Absolutely, and that brute force applied several years ago. To think about just where you are now with what you've made with this one-off creation. But if this was 20 years ago, you would brute force a whole bunch of stuff, and maybe have to go to a wood shop or start messing with hot plastic and molds, and the machining on it would be extraordinary. So
and then you'd have to do it all over again for the young lady that you met that has a different pump.
Exactly.
You have to do the different molds. So
so brute force. 3D printing as a force multiplier, mental force multiplier. When we're thinking about it that way, that's a new construct that really, you're just bringing to me as far as like a way of thinking about it right now too. So that's great. That's really great. Do you have anything besides the box? Do you have anything future oriented? But you talked about the croc gibbets and the box. Anything else that you're cooking up?
So I am not cooking up anything yet. That's what I want to, and that's I think the biggest block I'm running into right now is finding more things to make in print, because I don't want to get stuck, because I think that's like things that I want to design in print, I should say, not like make, because obviously I can pull up any of these apps and I can find like 100,000 things to print, but I think it's kind of finding things that are going to be functional for me to use in my everyday. Or I think that's kind of my thing, is I don't want something that it's like I'll use it and then after a little while I'm gonna just like get rid of it kind of thing, or like, oh, I just won't use it anymore. I want to find stuff that I'm using on a regular basis, but then also something that I can design. So it's not like super complicated that I'm like get frustrated halfway through the design process and I'm like, I can't do this. But at the same time has functionality and usability all the time. Because
I think you've already proven that you have a resilience to frustration in this project with your overnight layer shift. That did not deter you, didn't throw your hands up and give up. And that's, crucial to being a good maker, is hitting those obstacles and those failures and persevering.
Yeah. And I think that was really the big thing was, and that's honestly why I stepped away for a couple of days, because I was like, I finally got my finished thing. And of course, now is when my printer's going to, it's going to crap the bed a little bit and it's not going to do what it's supposed to do. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to take a couple of days off from it. I'm going to let my printer think about what it wants to do. I'm going to restart it, try to make sure all the gears and all that are doing what they're supposed to. The belt's working fine. And then I did a couple little test prints. I was like, all right, I'm going to try it again. Don't mess with me. And then of course, then it printed it out fine. And I was like, all right, cool. We're good again, printer. We're back on good terms.
Good stuff. And the your top and your bottom, you printed those separately, right? They didn't come out.
Yeah, they had to be printed on different plates. So I because of how big I wanted to make it, because I didn't want to fill up like the entire plate. Also, because I was like, it's just a lot of space to try to fill up. But I didn't want it to be where I could fit both pieces on the same plate, especially with the hinge pieces on the side. You would just need so much extra. Like you just need to make it so much smaller to get those hinge pieces, because I think it fills about like 3/4 of the plate on both halves, including the hinges. It's about 3/4 of the bamboo build plate. Again, I don't have exact measurements, so just looking at it, I'm ballparking. It looks to be about like 3/4 of it. And so, I printed them on separate plates. I think total print time for both plates was
10 hours.
I want to say it was about 10 hours. I think maybe a little bit less. So the one thing I guess that would kind of made the lid. So the lid I think was 2.5 or 3 hours. Is that I also additionally you can't see super well, but I put if lost please, or if found please call on the inside in that red filament as well. But I didn't put in my personal phone number because I wanted it again to be customizable, so I'll Sharpie my phone number into it. But then anyone that wants to use it can Sharpie theirs as well. But so that took a little bit of extra time but that's the glorious part about multicolored 3D printers is that I can go back and forth from filament to filament.
Here you go.
Oh, there you go. There's a better picture. Oh, and show the great cross pattern of the layers that it's printing in.
Well, you were going pretty fast, it looks like.
Yeah, I haven't messed. I'm not gonna lie. I don't think I've messed with speeds for the most part.
Okay.
So I just kind of let it print at whatever it says. I'm like, all right. The only time is I had a difficult period where my textured PEI plate, I had some time where stuff wasn't sticking. So I basically halved the initial layer print times, and that was basically all I've done as far as print speeds. And now I found like a Temu. I don't know what they're cooking up, but at Temu I found a smooth PEI plate, and it is stuck like glue. Like nothing. I just clean it with alcohol every once in a while. And I have printed like 50 straight prints, and I have to pry the stuff off of the build plate because it sticks so well. And I'm like, what is this? Like, this is just a PEI, smooth PEI plate. Like, this is not supposed to stick this well. And we'll see. It hasn't affected, like none of the there's no residue on or anything. Because I clean it with like rubbing alcohol, and then I just don't touch it, just outside of the plate. So hopefully it'll last me a while longer. But so I just don't mess with layer. I just don't mess with speed for the most part, unless if I run into an issue in the future, then I'll mess with the speed. But I leave it for the most part. And granted, saying that, like next week I'll probably be trying to print it and whatever that. What is it, like ludicrous? I don't know what the super fast mode that prints
150%. Yep.
Yeah. I'll be trying that in like a week. I'm sure. We'll see.
Yeah. Big plans for the summer.
I know. That's cool. The hope.
That's great.
Speaking of the summer, Karen Chow in the chat pointed out that redesigning your box from scratch would be a great way to learn Fusion. So
and that's the hope as well. Is now I've got the pieces. Now it's just got to put them together, and I might have to I'm gonna get again. I don't know technical terms. Whatever the thing is that like measures the millimeters of or the dimensions of objects that you like. The caliper,
calipers?
Is that what it's called? Yeah, caliper. I want to get a nice digital caliper so I can figure out like exactly how many millimeters it is for the width or the diameter. I guess that's what it's called. How
have you been measuring it now? Just
no, I just use other people's designs.
Okay.
So like I just did that. So the one that I actually needed to design, I just tried 3 different sizes of circle and then like a hole, and I just put it in, and then again, like you saw, like it's super super thin. I just printed 4 of those and just saw which one fit.
Now, one other thing you're going to find though is that I think that I've heard that different filaments cool at different rates. So,
yeah.
So when you and also that, and so you throw another variable in there of color, and that you might have a little bit. So digital caliper, you may want to back off and go analog or something.
Okay.
because sometimes when you try to make everything so digital.
Impact, like if he's using it to measure the physical, like the vials and the glass that he wants to.
Right, but if he's aiming for that number precisely using a digital caliper, let's say it goes down to thousandths, and he makes a hole that's 0.138, right? And then
it shrinks up when it's cooling.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. Yeah. And I think that's obviously.
I would do a hybrid of, like measure it with the digital calipers. And then when you make your hole, put in some tolerances. Like, I'll make my hole 0.05 millimeters bigger.
Yeah, that's true as well. And just trying to figure out what the goal is. Because again, like with this thing, so I didn't send any pictures, but I guess I can kind of plug something else I created. I just remembered. I kind of forgot about this. For my environmental science class, we were doing some water testing over 2 weeks. I didn't send any pictures of this, and I don't have one with me right now. But we needed, the professor wanted, we were using mason jars to collect water samples, but we went to the Neabsco boardwalk, and so she wanted to be able to lower.
I love the Neabsco boardwalk.
Yeah, it's awesome. It was beautiful when we went. We saw all kinds of animals, which is great. But she wanted to be able to lower. We wanted to be able to get water samples. In past years, she just kind of has to go wherever she can to get the actual samples. And so this year she was like, because I love 3D printing now. And so I've been talking about it to anyone that'll listen to me for 5 minutes about how great it is that I'm 3D printing and what I've been 3D printing recently. And she was like, well, can you make something for a mason jar lid? And so I had to go in and I figured out, I found a model for a lid, and then I made some additions. But there was a device that we used to test pH levels of the water. And it was a sensor. And so you'd have to let that sit there in the water, but you didn't want to touch the bottom because it messed up the readings with like the glass and all. I don't know if it was glass or just like too close to the bottom, like it settled wrong. I don't remember what it was. She explained it to me a while back. And so we had to put it, like leave it in the middle of the water, and so in a mason jar. And so you'd have to have someone sitting there holding it for a minute to a minute and a half. And no one wants to sit there and do that when you can be doing other tests or taking pictures or looking for birds or whatever else. So I was like, oh, I'm already making this lid design. Let me go ahead and design that. And so actually I do have one. I printed off like a little, like, I don't know, a caliper, like a little miniature one. I was like, all right, let me measure out the dimensions of this object, of this like device that we're using. And so then I printed a bunch of these little ones to try to figure out what size I wanted to use. And basically the goal was, of course I don't have the pieces with me, but it would basically sit halfway in and have like these little like prongs that would come up, and then they would come up over the edge of the jar, and it would just sit halfway in the water and test the readings over the minute and a half that it'd have to sit there. And so I used a caliper for that, but it was, again, so like that brute force way where like I measured it, couldn't get exactly what I wanted, so I just printed like 3 or 4 copies and figured out which one fit.
Right. That's rapid prototyping, by the way.
Yeah. And that's kind of what came in. I got and so that was kind of just like the process of that as well, which was nice. And Professor Nightingale, just a warning, I should have said this before, but I did send her the files for the objects I made, so she might be emailing you some in a future semester to print her out some more of them. So we'll see about that, because I have the files, because again, that's one thing that I did make. I forgot I have Tinkercad up. If you switch over to my Tinkercad screen, if it'll show up, I can pull that up, I think, in the midst of all the different things that I have been trying to make. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Wow.
So this is
beautiful. Yeah.
So this is the actual device. So this is the mason jar lid, and then you'll see that piece right there is basically just this little section right here printed then obviously with the additions and little prongs to hold it in place.
Mm-hmm.
But this was just this piece right here, just stuck right on top, and then it was just sat in the mason jar lid. And so this was my other big like design project. Again, I did not make the mason jar lid itself. I just went through and I made a bunch of holes to make it its own piece, because this was like the file I pulled in, and then everything else I added all the other stuff, which again butchered it a little bit, but I did what I could with the knowledge that I had. Yeah, exactly.
We can so you tell me I'm gonna get an email probably next semester or the one after asking me for a Mitolo mount.
Yeah. Basically, that's what she was saying. I printed a couple of them, but she was saying that what happens is a lot of times people go do some cleaning in between semesters, and then stuff gets lost. So I printed her a copy for herself and one to stay on site in case other professors wanted to use it. But who knows? Who knows? You might get something about that.
That Professor Rodriguez?
No, it's Professor Janet. I don't remember her last name, but she's one of the environmental science professors.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, we'll be on the lookout for that. No problem. Absolutely.
But yeah, that was my other thing, and I realized, you talking about the calipers. It's like, oh, I did actually use one for something. It wasn't anything crazy, but I used it for something, and it's just when I 3D printed.
Beautiful. Well, that's great. Well, Vicky, I mean, that's that. It is now 9:08.
It is, yeah. I want to just hop back a little bit. This was interesting. We were talking about the shrink of plastic. Bearded Printer said in the chat that there's a shrinkage percentage that you can set in Bamboo Studio, and the printer will adjust for that. I did not know, but now we all know.
Sweet.
Something I'll have to look into.
Yeah.
Add it to the list for the things I'll be doing in May.
Yeah. Listen, Joey, I love your story. I think it just shows like so many little milestones that all makers go through with, like, we have the idea, we're followed in love, we're talking everybody's ear off about 3D printing, we're hitting the roadblocks, and we're brute forcing our way around obstacles. And yeah, you've just hit everything in your journey so far, and it's just been this year. So I look forward to seeing what you come up with next, especially when you hit May with all that free time.
I know it'll be exciting, but then also, all the people that know me better watch out, because I'll be trying to talk to whoever I can even more.
I'm not sure if I told this story once. I was at a party and my husband was leaving and I was about to leave, and a neighbor came up and said, "Hey, Vicky, I have a question for you." And I told my husband, I'm like, if it's about 3D printing, I will be home in a few hours. But if it's about something else, I'll be home in a few minutes. And it was about 3D printing. So I stayed at the party a few more hours.
Absolutely. What's better to talk about than 3D printing?
I know.
Wonderful.
All right. So wrapping up, How Would You Slice That is live on Tuesdays that are prime numbers, like 29. The next episode will be on May 13th. A lot of you will maybe starting packing or starting your travels for the Rocky Mountain Rip Rap Festival, but hopefully you'll have some time to stop by and join us for that episode. Lauren's good find with Joey. And Joey, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been a treat. And everybody in the chat who's been watching and commenting, thank you so much for your engagement. We really appreciate you spending this time with us. All right. Any parting words, Lawrence?
Thank you so much, Joy, for coming out. Thank you for taking the time to go through this project and share it with us. And really excited about what you come up with next, for sure.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, guys.
No problem at all.